Welcome to Feeling Asian, a podcast where two Asians talk about their feelings. I'm Youngmi Mayer.
And I'm Brian Park. And
I'm so excited. I feel like I'm
freaking
usually,
out, everyone.
Usually Brian freaks out and I keep it cool because I don't have any, I disassociate. But today I'm like actually freaking out. I'm so excited for this guest and I think we should introduce him right away.
Oh yeah, I think our listeners are all freaking out right now, so let's just jump right into it. Listeners, you are in for a treat. Your guest this week is an actor and human being. And, without further ado, please give your ears to Stephanie Hsu.
Hi. For the record, I definitely told Brian to introduce me as human being, and I appreciate you following through with that.
Thank you. And to give a peek behind the curtain, for the record, that was our second introduction because I completely botched Stephanie's last name.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah.
I'm outing myself.
Well, and also, what's really amazing is that like Asian people mispronounce my last name all the time. So it really feels like an equalizing, it's an equalizing playground.
But that's a secret amongst us because the moment a white person on television does it, we're calling them out on Twitter.
How dare you? How dare you?
Exactly. Exactly.
It's a running joke on our podcast, Stephanie, that Brian is subverting Asian stereotypes by mispronouncing Asian names because we're also humans. Asians are also human. We make mistakes.
Yeah, it's okay.
We do. We're really
not a monolith. I am representing the Asian Americans who mispronounce Asian last names. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Stephanie, we're so excited to have you on the podcast and, learn all about you. But before we jump into it, Youngmi, how are you feeling?
Oh my gosh. I'm feeling really good. I'm drinking V8 juice. I don't know if you saw me doing that. Did you see me doing that? And it's warm.
Wow.
I don't know why it's
warm.
That's
just tomato soup.
Yeah. I feel like isn't it like unhealthy for you? I feel like it definitely.
Unhealthy? I think so. Yeah, it's health food from the 80s, which means it's carcinogenic. Yes.
Yeah.
So I bought it. I saw it at the store 2 days ago, and then I put it in the fridge 2 days ago, and it's warm still. So.
Oh my god.
All right, it's a viscose.
Really?
It's a viscose and carcinogenic. Everyone, this is an ad for V8. They paid me to be drinking V8, and I'm making them look very bad. I'm just kidding. It's I'm drinking V8. I guess it's my healthy thing. I'm like sitting among my plants, which is my ADHD hobby of the week. They'll all be dead by this time next week. So say goodbye. They're not going to be here. How am I feeling? I had a very busy week, but I just I feel like sometimes I feel like maybe being busy is the cure for me being so mentally ill. like because I was so busy that I couldn't stop and spiral and stuff, you know what I mean? Because I've just been waking up doing stuff and then going to bed, and then at nighttime I'm like, well, I have a lot of stuff to do tomorrow, so I'm gonna go to bed at 10. Because usually I'm up till 3 spiraling about stupid stuff.
Right. I mean, this is just a testament. It's a running joke on this podcast that our Asian immigrant mothers are always right. This is straight out of the immigrant playbook. Just be so busy to you cannot be mentally ill. You just don't even have the time to check in with yourself.
I wasn't depressed.
Totally. That's amazing. I feel like before the pandemic, I was really into work-life balance, and then specifically just not choosing to be a workaholic. And then honestly, in the last 2 years, I've been like, you know what? If your coping mechanism is work, have at it. Life is hard.
Let's go.
Seriously, let's just lean right into the Asian part, y'all.
Right.
And I am lazy. Yeah.
There's a Y2K resurgence happening. I think we got to bring back girl boss mentality. It was gone for 4 years. Let's bring it back, baby.
Yeah, we're gonna bring it. Yeah, it's we're gonna be ahead of the trend.
Right. Exactly. We're doing it vintagely.
We're doing it ironically. It's supposed to be funny, okay? We're too hip. So we're so hip that we look like we're behind. Oh no, I was just saying that joke, Brian, about the Asian moms, because it's my mom's always I had like really bad depression when I was a kid, and my mom was like, "You were lazy as a kid. You would just lay down for days." And I was like, "Mom, I was really severely depressed." But I don't know, Brian. Maybe you're right. Maybe my mom was right. Maybe she was right. She was on to something.
Well, okay. First and foremost, it sounds like you're busy, and it's all good things. But yeah, how are you feeling about all of it, though?
I mean, I'm being honest. Like it has like made me like too busy to really sit down and like have my dark thoughts. It's really helped me, and so yeah, I guess it's like it feels very chaotic. So maybe that's why. Because I'm just like, like I don't have a minute to really just like ponder. I feel like I'm having like a weird epiphany. Like, you know, my Korean mom was right the whole time.
Right.
No, in all seriousness, yeah. As I get older, in all seriousness, I do feel like I'm in a good mood, and I'm just gonna go with it. I'm not gonna think about it. Do you know what I mean? I'm not gonna like, why, you know, because I feel like there was a period where every time I was in a good mood, I would be like, I'm having a manic episode, but I'm like, why do I have to pathologize everything? You know, I'm in a good mood. Who cares?
I love that.
Right?
I love that.
The V8. How about
you? Better be sharing some of that branded money that you got from V8, because this is definitely an ad here.
Yeah.
How about you, Brian? How are you feeling?
Yeah, strangely similarly. And Stephanie, this was not intentional by any means. This is sort of morphing into a work productivity themed episode, but in the so I was away for the last 2.5 weeks on vacation / working remotely from Mexico City. And like I realized, so the pace of life there is much slower. And I went into it with the mentality of like, this is very much a vacation. I'm going to unplug. I'm not going to check Slack or my emails or et cetera, as frequently. And I found that I was getting so antsy and anxious on vacation because I cannot fucking unplug. Like, I think my natural state of being is just to constantly be checking my emails, and even if there's nothing there, I don't know, like just an email related to work just is heroin to my brain, and I need it. And damn, I think I'm a workaholic, and I have mixed feelings about it. I was kind of beating myself up over it because I'm like, what is wrong with me? You know, like, life is short, life is fleeting. Why am I so addicted to work and uncomfortable with just chilling on a beach? And Stephanie, you just said that, you know, maybe that's lean into it. So I'm ambivalent right now. I don't know how to feel, but it is a realization that I've made about myself, is that I am fully addicted to work, and I don't know if I'm capable of chilling, but we'll see.
Are you good at like working really hard and then taking a week off at the end of the year? You know what I mean? Like, are there windows of time that you can veg out?
I don't allow myself. This was my first vacation since pre-pandemic, and I don't, you know, I always attributed it to matters of circumstance, like, oh, it was a pandemic and there were so many travel restrictions, like I couldn't chill. But now I'm realizing, like, no, nothing's stopping me. I can entirely unplug for a week. But again, like, that's just my natural stasis, and maybe I just sleep well at night knowing that I just was glued to a computer screen and answering emails ad nauseum. But yeah, I don't know. I think I need to learn how to chill and unplug. That's my conclusion.
Do you go for walks?
I take a lot of naps, actually.
Oh,
yeah, like 15-minute naps.
Oh, I heard that's really, I can't do that. It's like, if I go down for a nap, it's like I wake up and it's Thursday and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, napping's a superpower.
Oh, wow. I love that. I love this optimism that you're bringing to the podcast. Let's go for it. Workaholic, lean in, my nap schedule. It's a superpower.
Wait, so Brian, are you saying that you feel better now that you're back in New York and you're like bombarded with work and stuff, do you feel
Well,
like physically better?
I feel great in that, like, yes, I eventually I forced myself to. I wasn't working as much, and it's nice to be in a new environment, come back to New York, and I'm now like appreciating buildings in a new way. Even though I've lived in the city for the last 7 years, I'm like, wow, there's so much beautiful architecture in this city that I just never took the time to really embrace. But I'll never be able to afford that like floor to ceiling window apartment in Soho, but damn, it looks so beautiful. And yeah, I have a fresh perspective to my work right now, but yeah, it's good. It's a much needed respite, but I am coming to terms with the fact that I think my life priorities are like so inextricably tied to work and like how productive I am. And like if I'm productive, then I feel good. And in the long run, I don't think that's very healthy. So I kind of want to like reframe in my brain a healthier work-life balance and nip it in the bud now.
But yeah, I feel like for me in my 30s has been about like coming to terms with my quote unquote shortcomings and like seeing them as, this is part of my personality, and that's totally fine. You know, like I am really bad at scheduling stuff, and maybe that's like you're coming to terms with, like maybe you're the type of person that just likes having a lot of work to do, and that's just your personality. You know,
sounds like a total drag to be around.
I love work. I love work and anxiety. Work emails really gets
and napping,
and then trauma napping.
I love napping. I love working hard, and I love mispronouncing Asian last names. That basically sums it up. But yeah, that was I feel good now. I was able to verbalize. That was the first time I really verbalized it, and it felt really nice. So thanks for listening. But in any case, Stephanie, enough about us. How are you feeling?
Well, it is so funny that we're, talking about working and work-life balance or the lack thereof, because I feel like I recently also have surrendered. I really like unplugging. I am the type of person who usually, like after a big project or after a really busy time, I will just put my away email messages on. I'll turn off my phone. I'll be in like a farm on some island, like rural island somewhere. Nice. And I just love like completely detoxing my mind. But I am in a really busy moment right now. And I think for a long time, I think I've really resisted my industry, and I think my inferiority complex was really like, you're here just because you're lucky, you're here on accident. Like, it's so crazy that all this is happening to you. Like, this is this is just like a weird fluke. And I would say that the release of Everything Everywhere and how people are receiving it has been really providing me a lot of healing, and not even just affirmation, but just helped me realize that like I have offered something, and it's not an accident that I'm here. Like, I'm allowed to love this thing that I do, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. Right. And so in a weird way, since the release of this movie, I've been like, you know what? I do deserve to be here, and I do deserve to work in this industry. I have value that I bring to the table, and I'm passionate and excited. And I have this very special moment and opportunity where I can really take the reins and forward a lot of projects that I've been working on or ideas in my head. And so I'm like, let me just be a workaholic for a little bit, because, how rare is it to be able to have this type of opportunity and agency in a very difficult field to work in. So that being said, I'm like, very much, I just got a work email, which has been transcendent, because I used to have all my emails go into one place, and then I would just be like, oh my gosh, all these people from all these lives and all these jobs are sending me all these things, and now I have one that's just solely designated to work, and it's been transformative.
Nice. Yeah, I need to get on that organization kick. I don't do that. I'm just like, everything goes through one thing, and I'm like, I'm just never going to read any of these emails, actually.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, it's my friends who, work in like nonprofit organizations have been teaching
Mm.
me, this is very sexy convo, but they've been teaching me about like Gmail filters and
I need
archival
that.
folders, and I'm just like, let me get into this and put my boss lady pants on.
I
Well,
love that.
something in your answer here is something that I actually was thinking about a lot after watching the movie. You said, I mean, it's kind of a little bit off topic from the first question, but it kind of reminds me of a lot of conversations that we have on the podcast with Asian creatives and a lot of my friends who are, like in marginalized groups where they call it imposter syndrome. And now they're kind of starting this conversation away from it, because this imposter syndrome is the idea that you are exceptional and you're great at your job, but because you don't think that people like you belong in a certain place, you think that it's or not even because of that, but you somehow can't accept that you're great, and you keep thinking that it's a mistake that you're moving ahead. But the truth is that you're just very good at your job, and you're exceptional, and everything that you're getting you actually deserve. And now there's like this conversation starting around how a lot of women of color have that imposter syndrome. But the other side of that is that the industries that we are present in actually sort of stoke that in us.
Have perpetuate,
Because they
yeah.
keep, because we are surrounded by people that are not as, maybe a little bit not as good as us, or mediocre, and we're seeing them move ahead, above us,
failing upwards
and into positions where other people that look like them have quote unquote belong, right? And so I feel like that's very much kind of what I wanted to touch on in a little bit in this conversation. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that's so real. I mean, I don't know how old you both are, but it sounds like you're both in your 30s. And I am in my early 30s as well. And, like when we were growing up, this podcast was not even a thing. So every form of media that we were seeing was not us, right? And so, yeah, we were literally imposters. Like we were like not there, the way that I think of the word imposter is just in this context is like if you're living in a castle and someone knocks on the door and the king's like, that's an imposter. And just, and I think it represents of like the word represents someone that doesn't belong, right? And I think that very literally what we were seeing in our media, whether it's magazines or the movies that were in the movie theaters, we just literally were not there, so it is so wild to be having this kind of community healing through this cultural landscape. And it's so complicated and nuanced, but feels really exciting as well.
Absolutely. And and I just want to stress that I'm really happy to hear and glad that you're taking this reception and this moment from Everything Everywhere as a way to validate your work, because you're absolutely tremendous in the film. And for the listeners who haven't seen it, like there's just so much character work, and it's just a very complex character that you embodied in the film. And the whole time I was like, this is fucking amazing. Like you're an incredibly talented actor. And it saddens me a little bit to hear that even like someone as talented as you has felt the rumblings of like imposter syndrome in such a tough industry that we exist within. But I mean, I just want to like shower you with all the praise, and I'm so glad that you're using this moment to like, approach your new work with this like positivity and optimism, because it's absolutely well deserved. And I think that lends us to a question that we had about the film more specifically. And you mentioned that when you reframed Imposter as like, especially for us Asian Americans, like in the media landscape 20 years ago, Imposter is just, there was nothing. It was a desolate landscape. Like we just didn't even have a table in the room. And we wanted to talk about like representation in a way that we feel like hasn't really been touched on in regards to Everything Everywhere. And that is, we felt that it was like a spectacular and deeply Asian American film. And, Youngmi and I, we talked about how it made us a little bit sad too, because it feels like something Asians were always capable of doing. And we're somewhat left wondering like what could have been if more Asian Americans were encouraged to create films decades ago. And we're wondering like, what are your emotions involving the success of this film and the paths of all the creatives involved? And do you think this film will open more doors for more ambitious Asian projects?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated, right? Like, I think the woo-woo side of me really believes in divine timing. I mean, we filmed this movie before the pandemic, so we've actually been sitting on this movie for 2 years, and yet it feels like the perfect time to be releasing this film. And I think there's always, when it comes to anything, like there's always a certain kind of what if, and man, I wish we could have started so much sooner. I wish this happened so much sooner. But I do believe that progress happens sometimes at a time scale that we can't even understand why it is the way that it is. But it was, actually, this is a quote that I think the old coach of the San Antonio Spurs used to say, Greg Popovich, which is that it's not if a nail and a hammer are to a stone, it is not the final hit that breaks the stone open. It is all the hundreds and thousands of pounds on the nail that happen before that break the stone down for that hit, right? And so unfortunately, for whatever reason, it's taken us this long. And I think that when I was younger, if I had stopped to think about all the ways in which this is an impossible industry for me to pursue, I would have just gotten too depressed and too sad and gave up. You know what I mean? If I really looked at all the reasons why it was impossible, I would have just been too sad. So in some ways, I feel like this moment I'm just excited to celebrate it. And I think because James Hong, for example, who has been in over 500 movies, is 93 years old. He still loves acting as much as he did when he first started. And when he first started, people were in yellow face. You know what I mean? Like, think about how much in one lifetime that is where he started. And so I have to believe that there's just so much to look forward to. There's so many ways that we are about to surprise ourselves, and the way, that I'm excited to continue to look forward. But I definitely affirm the sadness too, because, I think about, Michelle obviously has had an incredible career, but she hasn't had an opportunity like this. And at the same time, like, it had to be at this time in her life for her to be able to show all that she's capable of, because she's acquired so much over the years. And the same with Key. Like, of course, there is a part of me that's very aware, Key's amazing in the film, and he stopped acting for 20 years because there were no roles available for him. And then he gets to come back like this. But, there's always, I think no matter the color of your skin, there's always a little bit of fear that there won't be something else for you to do.
I was thinking, that's like the part that makes me really sad, when I heard about Key, and like I read about like what happened to his acting career, and obviously now, and then just hearing about you say if you had really sat down and thought about what was going to happen to you in this industry, it was like hard to think about. I think that makes me so sad, because I think what comes up for me is like, I can't help but think about all the thousands of people that, you know, were like, just like the thought of like some kid that's an Asian kid in the 70s or 80s writing a wonderful screenplay about our experience as Asian people, or his experience or her experience, right? And that just being like, nobody fucking reading that. Do you know what I mean? Like that, like all those people. And I think, but obviously the other side of that emotion and that sadness is like very profound sadness, you know. The other side of that is just like so much excitement and happiness for you and all the other people involved, and like what you said, like, oh, with Michelle, like this had to happen now, and like that it happened, and it's exciting, and so we can be also happy, you know. Also, can I
sorry,
please, what were you gonna say?
Go on.
Well, I was gonna say that maybe that is what we're all three of us are kind of tapping into, some sort of workaholicism, right? Is maybe because we are inspired or like charged, or something in us is like, I can push something forward more than I could even just a year ago. And so I better keep pushing, which is not necessarily healthy, right? That's like, I think the also, you know, complicated conversation around marginalized people and the pressure to excel beyond all means is like extraordinary, you know?
Also,
and I definitely feel, what were you about to say?
Oh, sorry. I don't know why I started crying, and now I'm like, this is so fucking stupid. I'm so corny, and like, look at us, we did it. And I'm like, this is the weirdest time I started crying ever on this podcast. Oh, I was just gonna say that what you just brought up is in the movie, you know, like which is amazing. Like this entire conversation that we're having is like mirrored in the movie. Like that just like is. I don't know why am I crying right now? Right? It's the V8.
Because you're feeling the feelings. It's the V8. It's the feelings. You're feeling Asian.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's a soundbite. Somebody, we got that right.
You're welcome.
No, but I'm so proud of you. Oh, also, can I just say something really funny, Brian? Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, please.
I just want to say another funny thing about this movie is whenever anyone speaks, is it like Cantonese in the movie, or okay, so like
there's Cantonese and Mandarin.
Okay, so whenever anyone speaks Cantonese or Mandarin, it's so authentic. But like, do you remember when we were kids, there'd be like a movie like, oh, we're going to Japan, and then like somebody would start speaking Korean because they just hire just hire an Asian person, whatever, and it would be like Dongbek, and I'm like, that person doesn't even speak Korean. Like, what's going on? It would be so ridiculous.
I read an episode of something before the pandemic, but not so long ago that it's like freakishly crazy. Maybe 5 years ago, I read an episode of something where it took place in a Chinese nail salon, and then they walked in, and the Asian people that were in there, they were speaking English, but they were saying like "mama-san," which is a very Japanese thing to say, and I just was like, what is this? I was like, get me out. Oh my God. It's so triggering to read. Just like, my God.
I wanted to, you know, you mentioned divine timing, Stephanie, and like, you know, one thing that really struck me with Everything Everywhere was the messaging of the film. Like after I saw it, you know, there was just a silence that kind of just fell over the movie. I fell over the theater, and everyone was like, "Oh my God!" And you know, I loved how positive and hopeful and inspiring and optimistic the messaging of the movie was, because I just feel like lately so many films that are quote unquote like good or like Oscar buzzy, or just films that people on Letterboxd would like, they're so nihilistic and cynical in messaging. So that's why like Everything Everywhere, in terms of divine timing, it just felt like a breath of fresh air. Like I think it's so much harder to execute art that is rooted in positivity because it's just challenging. And I think you all, everyone on the film involved like knocked it out of the park. And I'm curious, like, the director one of the directors, Daniel Kwan, he's very active on socials and like is so gracious and always credits everyone involved in the film and like gives a lot of BTS shots in his Instagram stories. And it looks like really fun, and there's like a strong sense of camaraderie amongst the cast and crew. And I'm curious, like, while you were making this and involved with this project, like, was it palpable? Did you feel like you were part of something special?
Absolutely. I mean, it's so funny. As you were talking, I just started to get emotional too, because, it's young me. You gave it to me all from New York.
I'm sending it.
You're crying poison.
I didn't want to cry. I sent it to you.
V8. No, I mean, listen, the reason why this movie is the way it is because the Daniels really care about humanity. They both are excellent filmmakers with big hearts who exercise a lot of kindness, both in how they run a production, how they run a collaborative environment, especially also with our producer, Jonathan Wong. But they literally want to make the world a better place. And I just feel so lucky because I came up from a world of experimental theater, and one of my biggest mentors was this woman, Liz Swados, and she wrote this musical that literally took homeless children off the streets of New York in the 1970s and wrote a musical with them, and then it ended up going to Broadway. But she was always very like, fuck the man, the man. But the purpose of being an artist is to be to provide offering, to provide healing. And so to be able to somehow get to do this project as like my first studio feature feels like the most honest way for me to shake hands with the outside world of like, this is what I'm about, and these are my friends, and this is what we're about. We're about like creating inventive stories that are also for you. They're not meant to alienate you. We don't want to make you feel better and not challenge you. We want to challenge you, but at the end of the day, like, we're all trying to figure out how to make sense of this very crazy time we're living in. And if we're gonna make art, we hope that you can go home with just some of your heart held. And I think that the Daniels do such a great job of creating a collaborative environment where everyone feels equal. I mean, we do warm-ups, we do awards on Fridays, where we give an award to someone who maybe is less in the forefront, right? Like if a prop assistant versus a prop master, or someone who just built some crazy set piece, and we bring them out and give them a little award. And Jonathan Wong, our producer, he sends out newsletters at the end of the week of like a recap of good things that happened. And I think the reason why this film works is because the way that we made it and the heart that is there, that is the like sort of theme of the movie, is actually how we practiced the art of making it, and to me, like this whole experience is so life affirming because it makes me believe that it is possible to be good, right? It makes me believe that people are not so jaded that they don't have room for compassion or like sweetness in a very cutthroat industry. Like we have to be kind. We have to.
You can really feel that through the screen. I think all that work makes so much sense. And I think that one of my friends, I was talking to my friend, and she was like, well, I was sobbing violently throughout the movie. And she was like, well, because she was like, she's been through, like, my close friend, she's had a very hard, traumatic life, and she's a Buddhist. And she was like, well, she was like, I kind of feel like I'm seeing my life philosophy on the screen, and nobody understands where I'm from, because I'm just where I'm like, what place I'm coming from, which is like always the softness and the kindness and the gentleness. And for her, that's basically meant like a lifetime of people who are not that, like cruel and taking advantage of her. And do you know what I mean? Like this feeling of sort of trying, you know, that saying like the hardest thing in the world is to continue to be kind, or there's some sort of saying like that. And I think for her that's very true, and I think that's what spoke to her in this film.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I sort of love also, I think what's helped me a lot, even in just, you know, rewatching it after these years, you know, obviously everyone really loves the rock scene, and it is one of my favorite scenes as well. But I think the movie is very Buddhist in some ways, right? Or it has a very kind of cosmic Zen philosophy, and we are all small and stupid. Like we are all insignificant.
I say that every day.
But our insignificance is also quite significant, because somehow we are all here at this moment in time, right? To be celebrating this movie, to be celebrating each other on this Zoom. Like for some freakish reason, we are here. And so like we don't have to do anything with our nothingness, but we're all just trying. We're all just trying our best. None of us know how to stop the war. None of us know like how to fix it, but we can just try. And I feel like in our culture, and especially with social media, there's so much like defiant knowing, right? Like I know this is my opinion and I know it. And I just think that there's such value in not knowing and realizing how much we actually do not know.
Preach.
And I do think that our movie offers that kind of like, gosh, I don't know. I have no idea, but nothing matters. So we can just do our very best.
I call it the I'm a dumb bitch philosophy. I'm a stupid bitch who doesn't know anything. And I stick to that every day. Oh, I just want to clarify that when you said the rock scene, everyone, if you haven't seen the movie, it's when they're rocks, not Dwayne the Rock Johnson. I don't want people like ooh, I heard the rocks in this movie. No,
the rock.
Oh God.
Listen, if that's gonna get you there,
yes, yeah, he's there. He's in the movie. Go watch it.
Oh man, that fucking rock scene. That's like I was just so sobbing during the rock scene. I'm just like, damn. I know that I'm watching like a truly great film if there's just enough emotional stakes and just seeing two rocks on the screen and like, why am I sobbing? What is happening to my body
when the
right
rock falls off the cliff? Oh my God, I lost it. The rock rolls off the cliff. That was it for me.
When Dwayne the Rock Johnson falls off a cliff.
Oh no,
that's so funny.
Well, you know, this is you know, for our listeners, if you haven't seen it at this point, then you're the problem. Go see it. But we wanted to dive a little bit into your characters in this film, and you know, it was just so insane and awesome, for lack of a better word, because you seamlessly weave through all these characters, and you know, you played three in particular: Joy Wang and Jobu Tupaki, and this third combined character of Joybu. And we're wondering, like, did you derive anything from your personal life to flesh out these three distinct characters? Like, what was how did you like keep track of all of it all?
Yeah, so I would say like the two most distinct characters that we were really focusing on were Joy and Jobu, and then the Daniels and I created Joybu as a sort of secret language thing that sometimes we would just like whip out a texture of like, I'm not one or the other, but maybe I'm both and all, you know, and that was like a weird sort of shorthand that we made up that I think really helped I mean, you can't necessarily distinguish those moments, but I think it helped us just get at a texture for a villain.
Right.
But yeah, I think, you know, I am a daughter of an immigrant, and I think that there was a lot that I was able to pull from um, for the character of Joy, who is this queer, despondent, very depressed daughter of an immigrant who's desperately trying to, reach her mother, but failing to do so at every
Mm.
turn. And the sort of core root of what I wanted to share between Joy and Jobu, I wanted to make sure that they were ultimately still coming from the same
Mm-hmm.
place, right? And that center is actually of
Mm-hmm.
nihilism, right?
Right.
Right, of nothing mattersness, is actually from a place of hyper empathy. Because Jobu Tupaki, who is this nihilist creator of chaos, can feel. There's a line in the movie where they say she has seen all and she
Feels all.
feels
Yeah, yeah.
all. Um, and that is something that I think I was really sort of tapping
Mm-hmm.
into. And Joy feels all, and it completely drowns her and overwhelms
Mm.
her. Whereas Jobu feels so much that she's like, let me self sabotage and like blow
Mm-hmm.
it all up
Wow.
and just create chaos. Um,
Wow.
and definitely in terms of just being a hyper empath, that is something that, when I first moved to New York, I remember like sitting on a subway and seeing a stranger cry on the other side of the train, and I would just be weighed down. But I was like totally just overwhelmed with sadness
Mm.
and concern for this
Mm-hmm.
stranger. And through my years of living in New York, I had to really start, and getting older, I had to start learning to, not carry what's
Yeah,
not
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yep.
yours. But I think naturally I do have that sort of hyper awareness and hyper
Mm-hmm.
feelingness that I definitely tapped into for Joy and Jobu.
Wow. I totally get that. That's so profound how you're like it's like they're both coming from this place of feeling too much and so they're not feeling anything at all and somehow
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the same thing, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
weird, right?
I totally get it. When you said it like that, I was like, wow, that really clicks. But to me, I felt like they were two very separate characters and I thought you
Oh
really
yeah.
masterfully played them, but then I could also see like that they were supposed to sort of be the same character. And also, I feel like both characters, I feel like I know so many Asian daughters that are both those characters.
Totally.
So, yeah, that was really amazing. I was so blown away by your skill and your craft.
Thank you so much. Um, yeah, it's crazy.
They're like, Youngmi, do you remember? So Youngmi and I, we both went to the same. We studied acting at the same studio in New York,
Yep.
and I remember like, I came up in comedy, and comedy is inherently just so cynical and nihilistic, and I
Mhm.
remember like on my first day of acting school, I was like, what is all of this woo woo shit? Like, this is what's going on here? Like, is this
Yeah.
real? But then, a year after into the program, I was just like fully into the Kool-Aid, and I'm like, I'm an actor, and like I'm walking New York, like I'm feeling everything, and it just making
Brian
me
was
cry
feeling,
so
yeah,
much. But that just brought up
he's
that
really
memory
feeling
for me,
everything.
because when you were like, I was like, oh yeah, Stephanie is you are a legit true actor, because you can compartmentalize that and you feel all the things. Because
And just act normal on the subway. Meanwhile, Brian's crying. Brian was the one that was crying that you saw on the subway.
yeah, and people are like, are you okay? And I'm just like, no, I'm in acting school, it's just too much.
I'm an actor. I feel too much.
It's so funny because I feel like I resisted, I'm such a little poo head. I feel like for the longest time I was like really obsessed with not just being an
Mm,
actor. And I think I still at my core am obsessed with that. Like I value writing and I want to direct
Mm-hmm.
one day, et cetera,
mm-hmm,
et cetera. But I think that I was always just worried that if people knew I was an actor, they wouldn't think I was smart
mm,
or like a full fleshed out human being. And
Wow.
so I never wanted to be the cliche of an
Mm.
actor. And in my recent embrace of like, okay, yeah, this is what you do, and this is like the thing that continues to put food on the table for you, and like open every door. Shut up, you're so annoying. Um, I I've been like just embracing that curiosity again, which I find to be really healthy and also fun, of just people watching and noticing. And I think I'm not a method actor, but I think inevitably, like when you get a script or you're working on a project, you're going to draw from what you
Right.
know and what is familiar to you and your experiences. And to be an actor is actually it's pretty tender, right? You're constantly being asked to look at all those ugly parts of yourself, or recall those memories that were profound and possibly painful, and then turn it into art.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, how dehumanizing. But also very healing, right? It is very healing. Yeah.
Well, you're the best actor that I know, so that I've ever met. I mean, that's
you're very
kind. Definitely benefited
I'm
tremendously from your service.
I feel like people like toss around the words like brilliant and genius all the time, but that's how I feel about your work, and I feel like people don't use that word for anyone else. Everyone, it's only for Stephanie.
Thank you.
Well, so wait, can I move on to the last question before the quickfire thing?
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is the question that I was just thinking, because when I saw the movie, I was in the theater, and I was like, I feel like the only Asian person that I could see, and I found myself laughing at certain times, like so hard, and nobody else was really laughing. And so I guess the question that I have for you is, I think like good writing and good humor is universal, but do you, like, while you were making the movie, did you notice any like themes or jokes that you thought that people that weren't Asian wouldn't get?
It's so funny because I think because all of us were Asian, we were just excited about all the things that we thought were really funny. I mean, there's so much in the movie that I think everybody has something to hang their hat on. Well, first of all, if you hate the movie in the first 15 minutes, you're just going to hate the movie the whole time. So it's like, okay, that's fair. Like, this movie is not for you, and it's okay. But if there's anything that like captures you, you're gonna find something outside of like, Asian dialogue or whatever to kind of keep you going, because there is so much humor. But what I love about it is that there is very specific humor to Asian culture. One of my favorite jokes, and it's not even like a joke really, but is when in the beginning of the movie, when the character Evelyn, who's played by Michelle Yeoh, is talking to her daughter Joy, played by me, and Joy has her girlfriend Becky over at the house, and they're making like sesame noodles in the kitchen, and Evelyn says something like, he doesn't have to stay, and then Joy is like, oh, who's he? And then Evelyn says, he, Becky. And then Joy says, Becky's a she, Mom. And then Evelyn says, well, he, she, in Chinese, it's all the same, pa, which, is something that if you don't speak Mandarin, or if you don't know what that means, that's going to float. That's just information about a character, but it's not funny. And I just love, I don't know. I know that flew over so many people's heads, but it hits really deep for me,
Yeah.
No, that's
No, I was gonna say, like, I felt that in many moments throughout the film, and I think that the core heart of this film is so universal that even if those jokes, like, there were those subtle moments fly over your head, like, you will still leave with like something to be had from this film. But like one moment in particular was like, when Joy is in her car and Evelyn, like, you could tell that Evelyn wants to apologize, but she just can't. So instead she just insults her daughter. And I was like, oh fuck. I felt that. oy, like this is a lot.
Oh, yeah. All those little moments. I have to say, well, the moment that you bring up, Stephanie, I thought that was so genius because as somebody that like is, like half Korean and I grew up in Korea, when I come to America and there's all these like discourse and like topics of discussion, I'm like, oh, well, there's like a whole other world out there and like people see things so differently. And like, like I think the line that you talk about is about like the sensitivity to pronouns that's very, very valid and very important. It's a very important discourse that we're having in America. But then Evelyn is like, well, like I didn't misgender them. It's just that in my native language, we only have one pronoun. And so it's like showing this like it's showing you people that the world is very big and there's like all these other people that live in it. Do you know what I mean? I thought it was really smart.
Totally. Yeah. And, and I don't know, like, I think in that specific moment, the Daniels and we weren't thinking about the scope of that conversation. We were just so specific. And that is, I think, such a great teacher in the gifts of hyperspecificity is that actually when you're more specific, the stories become more universal somehow. And that is just that's just interesting.
Also, let me say that the parts where I laughed at, I think the reason people weren't laughing weren't that they didn't get it, it's because they were scared to laugh. Because the parts where I was laughing so hard was when Evelyn's born and the doctor's like, I'm sorry, she's a girl. And I was like, I that 100% happens. And I thought that was so funny. And I think like the like sweet like couple next to me, they're like, I'm sorry for your trauma. And I'm like, no, it's funny. That's fucking Or like the part that Brian brought up, like whenever Evelyn like insults her daughter, people were like, and meanwhile I was like cry laughing because I'm like, that's so accurate. You know? And I feel like people felt like they like weren't allowed to laugh, I think is what was going, like they got it was funny.
Totally. I think that's totally accurate. And it just, your experience of the movie varies so much on who you're with. And I definitely recommend bringing people that you like. Just going with friends is so fun because I think when people start laughing, it also teaches other people that they're allowed to. And I think that, there's a lot happening in the movie very fast, very quickly, all at once in the very beginning. And I think that it's always really interesting. I've seen it 7 times now, and it's really interesting. I love going to theaters or watching it when I'm with true strangers and not people in the industry, because I like to see and notice when people start to break open a little bit and how people like learn the movie. And I find that I think it's the fanny pack scene, the Keys fanny pack fight, that really breaks people open and teaches people, oh, this is funny. This is going to be funny and awesome and weird, and I'm allowed to laugh.
Funny, awesome, that's and so weird is I'm gonna just I feel like that's the Asian American experience. Funny, awesome, and weird.
Funny, awesome, and weird. And sad.
and sad.
and sad.
I'm Let's sorry, she's a girl.
Well, this is, before we let you go, we want to shift into our lightning round portion of this podcast, and we like to ask all of our guests these questions just to get to know a little bit more about them. So, Stephanie, what is something you're loving right now?
What am I loving? Oh my gosh. I'm really, okay. So I love cooking and I love herbs and I'm really loving basil right now. We'll make salads and then I will just like cut basil in. Oh, and also this is like an Asian thing. You said rapid fire and I'm monologuing, no. But so Asian people do that thing where they cut scallions with scissors. So now I'll even just like cut like a salad with scissors, where I'll throw it all into a bowl and I'll just like kind of toss it like that.
Scissors are underrated utensil in the kitchen.
Scissor cooking.
Scissor cooking. I'm into scissor cooking. That feels accurate.
I feel like Korean moms, that's all they use. Like, have you ever been to like a Korean barbecue and they just like bust out the scissors and they just start scissoring scissoring. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, but
that's
whenever
so
I go to my
exciting.
non-Asian friends' kitchens, I'm like, you could just use scissors. Like,
Just use the
just
scissors.
bust them out.
I do think scissors are the most popular in the Korean diaspora.
Oh yeah.
I have to
Oh
say.
yeah. Oh
Yep.
yeah.
Right?
They're big on the
It's a
scissors.
it's a
I
good
don't know
tool.
how that happened, but you know, it happened. Thank God.
And they got those thick scissors too to like cut
That have
meat
like
and stuff.
like a jagged circle
Meat
in the middle.
scissors.
Jagged, yeah. Yes.
Love it.
Scissors. Oh, scissors and basil.
Love it.
Oh, I
Scissors
love
and
fresh
basil.
herbs. It's exciting.
Y'all heard it here first. Conversely, Stephanie, what is something you're hating right now?
Oh my God, this Roe v. Wade shit is so fucked up. And I just, yeah, it's just a really hard time in our country, and it's very difficult to know how to be helpful. And that is that I hate that. I just hate it. I hate, and what's really sad is that I think that I really lost a lot of hope for America long ago, and so I'm feeling myself feeling not surprised that this is happening, and like moving through that, where, you know, in my 20s I was at every march and I was always on the front lines and like pushing so much forward. And I think I feel really just I don't know what this country stands for right now. And so I'm having a hard time standing up for it, you know, or like fighting for some universal vision of it, because it doesn't feel like we're moving in that direction. And so, yeah, scary.
Yeah. It's like, if I like stop and think about it, I'm just like, this is like, it's like so scary. What does it mean?
Yeah.
I felt this level of frustration about it, where I felt like it's never gonna get fixed. So I was like, recently, especially since the pandemic and 2 years of being so fucking stressed out, I've hit this place in my brain where I'm like, this is also very on theme. I'm just gonna fucking make jokes about this, because I have to laugh about this at this point, because I can't, it's not gonna, there's like, you know, like what you were saying earlier, like what can I do? Obviously there are things that I can do, and I try to do that, but it's like at the end of the day it just feels like we're fighting, like trying to climb a mountain, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Just make jokes.
And I do still have hope. And art is a part of that conversation, right? Like jokes and it is all part of it. But you know, I'm just trying to be softer about it, because again, in this sort of spirit of divine timing, we all have to put in the labor and the work and the effort to make things better. And at the same time, I think that there's just something bigger that's shifting in our country right now that I certainly don't understand, but it's happening.
Right. Absolutely. Ugh. Well, thank you for sharing. I certainly take solace in knowing that, you know, conversations like these where I can confide in other people who feel the same feelings that I'm feeling. So thank you for that. Yeah, so our next question, like, I'm like, wow, sudden shift. Our next question.
Scissors.
Scissors.
Clear the plate.
You know that meme where this kid drew, like, you know those like memes where it says like funny things that kids write in their homework? There was this one picture, and it said somebody like 8-year-old had written scissors, and they drew scissors, but it looked like a penis and balls. I like.
Oh my God.
Like that's like an inside joke that I have with my friend, and every once in a while I'll just be like scissors, and then we'll both just die laughing.
That's really funny.
I'll send it to you later. It's so funny.
Love it. So Stephanie, your response to this next question, listeners, if you want to hear Stephanie's response to this, you're gonna have to subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/feelingasian. This is where our guests get pretty juicy. So without further ado, Stephanie, what is something you're ashamed of? Stephanie, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and getting real with us. But we want to leave you with this one last question that we like to ask all of our guests, and that is, what is something that you're proud of?
I'm really proud of Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm not only proud of the offering that it is to this moment in time and the people out there in the world, but I'm really proud of my friends, the Daniels and Michelle, Jamie Key. I'm proud of how everyone is handling it, and with so much grace and kindness and genuine excitement, but they still just feel like regular people. I mean, everyone's handling it with so much love in their hearts, and I'm really proud to be a part of an important movie that is also with such good people.
I love that. No.
No, don't say sorry.
About is that I feel so like I like feel like everybody in the movie, even though I don't know them, and of course like Michelle and Key, they're both so famous, and obviously I saw them growing up and I know of them. I think this movie is so great because it just shows that people, like we're just I don't know why, but like it just really feels that they're just like great people, and maybe we're all just good people, and maybe we all deserve like space for us, and I'm really proud, and I'm very excited to have talked to you today, because I just feel like I feel so like thankful that this movie exists, and I'm sure that like like people, I'm sure that for sure it's opening so many doors for so many people, and like the sad part that I was talking about earlier, like thinking about all the people that never got a chance. There are a bunch of people that saw this movie and now feel like they can definitely do it too. And I think that's like very profound. So I'm so thankful that you came on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, and thank you for believing in the movie so much.
Yay!
I just wanted to echo that sentiment because, Stephanie, for one, I'm very proud of you and, all of the well-deserved success that has come through, Everything Everywhere. And, there were so many moments in our conversation that I was left with like goosebumps, and I just want to thank you for, I don't know, it was just like much needed. And in this theme of divine timing, like I find that in this industry there's so many roadblocks, and it's very challenging, and I find that times that I can get quite jaded and quite cynical about, and just so focused on outcome rather than embracing process. And I think that your relationship to your work and the way you framed like this the pursuit of art and what it means to you, and like you said, like the rock scene, like we're all just like floating specks in space, and we're all just we're here for a reason, and we're all just doing our best and having a conversation. And it was a much needed, I thank you for sharing that, is just all I want to say, because it's a salve to some of the cynicism that I carry with me. And I'm leaving this conversation feeling more hopeful and optimistic.
Thanks, y'all. That means a lot. Yeah, thanks for holding this space.
Yeah, of course. Also, I just want to say, I always say on this podcast, like, don't feel embarrassed by your emotions. But I feel kind of stupid that I cried. I don't know why.
Why?
It's making me, because I'm crying. I mean, obviously, this is your wonderful, beautiful work, but it's like, I'm like, I don't know anybody in the movie. Like, I'm just like, I'm so happy for my friend. It's like, I have nothing to do with anybody. I'm like,
if it makes you feel any better, so many people, when I do interviews or press, so many people start crying.
Really?
And I think it's
okay.
Yeah, you're not alone. You are not alone.
That makes me feel so much better.
But you're not. I think it's so cool. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, it's so refreshing to know that people can be moved like that our physical beings can be moved to tears,
Yeah.
even if it had nothing to do with the movie, but just like having this conversation gives you space to move some shit. Like, my God, thank you for crying. Thank you for being an open channel.
Oh.
A V8.
It's the V8. Sponsored by V8. You put it in the fridge for 2 days and it will never get cold. V8.
Yeah.
For our listeners out there, where can they find you and your work online?
The internet. Just Google my name. I don't know. I have a complicated relationship to Instagram, but I'm on it. Find me. I'm using it. I'm using it these days.
Yay.
Trying to, not fight everything, but embrace the reality that everyone, receives a lot of information from social media.
Yeah.
And until Elon Musk buys that too, I'm here.
Right. Right.
And what about you, Young Mi?
You can find me at YMMayor or on TikTok at YoungMeMayor. How about you, Brian?
You guys can find me online at It's Brian Park. And if you made it this far, like and subscribe to our podcast. Follow our podcast on socials at Feeling Asian Podcast. And yeah, I think that's it. Once again, thank you for joining us, Stephanie. And we hope you all have a wonderful week.
And check out the movie if you haven't seen it. Check out the movie if you haven't seen it.
Go to the movie and sneak in a V8 and enjoy.
Starring Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Bye.
Bye, everyone.